The sun was just peeking over the horizon, casting a golden glow over the quiet streets of Memphis, Tennessee. The air was still, but the silence was about to be shattered. At the bottom of a long driveway, a group of people began to gather, their eyes fixed on the iron gates of Graceland. They were fans, eager for a glimpse of the king, Elvis Presley. Everett Brown was on his way to work, driving down Bellevue Avenue. His old car suddenly sputtered and overheated, forcing him to pull over. He got out and walked towards a phone booth, but his eyes were drawn to something more captivating. There, at the end of the driveway, a figure on horseback caught his attention. It was Elvis, sitting tall on a golden palomino with a flowing white mane and tail. The king wore white pants, a ruffled shirt, and a purple scarf around his neck. He looked like a vision from a fairy tale, a modern-day knight on his noble steed. Brown's heart raced as he watched Elvis guide the horse down the driveway. The palomino, named Rising Sun, moved with grace and power, its hooves barely touching the ground. Brown couldn't believe his luck. He had stumbled upon a scene that few people outside of Elvis's inner circle ever witnessed. Elvis reached the gates, and the crowd erupted into a chorus of cheers and applause. He dismounted and began to mingle with the fans, signing autographs and chatting with anyone who had the courage to approach him. Brown stood back, mesmerized by the sight. He watched as Elvis, the superstar, transformed into a simple man, a horse lover, and a friend. Elvis had always been a fan of horses, but owning one was a luxury he could never afford as a child. Growing up in poverty, he had dreamed of the day when he could have a horse of his own. Now, as a famous singer and actor, he had not only achieved that dream, but had also become the proud owner of dozens of horses and 2 farms to care for them. The fans were in awe of Elvis's riding skills. He handled Rising Sun with ease, his movements fluid and natural. It was clear that Elvis had a deep connection with his horses, a bond that brought him peace and joy. For a man who was constantly in the spotlight, the barn and the fields were his sanctuary. Here he could be himself, away from the pressures of fame and the constant attention of the media. Brown watched as Elvis allowed parents to lift their children onto Rising Sun's back, posing for photographs and sharing a moment of pure happiness. The children's faces lit up with excitement, and their laughter filled the air. For a brief moment, the world seemed to slow down, and all that mattered was the man, the horse, and the people who loved them both. As the morning wore on, Elvis continued to ride and chat with the fans. The sun climbed higher in the sky, and the air grew warmer. But for those who were there, the memory of that morning would remain forever etched in their minds. They had seen something special, something that went beyond the fame and the glory. They had seen Elvis Presley, the king in his true element, surrounded by the horses he loved. Elvis's love for horses was well known, and it's easy to see why. Riding provided him with a much-needed escape from the chaos of his fame. Whether he was riding alone or with friends, Elvis found joy and peace in the company of his horses. He would spend hours in the barn, grooming and caring for them, often more organized there than in any other part of his life. Fans visiting Graceland today can still see his handwriting on the walls, where he labeled each horse's tack. One summer morning, a woman at Graceland asked Elvis if he'd be riding his favorite black Tennessee walker, Bear. Elvis chuckled and replied, "No, honey, I think I'll keep my clothes on." His quick wit and charm made these moments with fans even more memorable. Elvis's love for horses wasn't just a pastime. It also played a role in his performances. When he rode for fans, he would dress up in stylish outfits, like silk blouses, brightly colored scarves, and a derby hat. Sometimes he would even toss his scarf to a lucky fan. But when he was alone or working in the barn, he dressed more casually in jeans, a suede jacket, and a cowboy hat. Whether he was showing off or finding solace, Elvis always seemed happiest around his horses. This love for horses wasn't new. Even as a child, Elvis showed a deep connection to animals. His father, Vernon, remembered that young Elvis didn't want to go hunting because he didn't want to kill birds. When Elvis was 2, he was devastated when his pet rooster passed away. Despite their humble beginnings, the Presleys had chickens and roosters, and little Elvis bonded with them. In 1955, when Elvis was dating June Juanico, he often talked about his dream of having horses. They would drive by ranches, and Elvis would joke, "I guess I'll just have to buy one of my own, huh?" Their relationship was marked by many happy memories, including vacations at the Gulf Hills Resort in Mississippi. Gulf Hills offered a variety of activities, but Elvis especially enjoyed horseback riding. The resort had a stable with over 20 horses, and Elvis spent a lot of time there, often singing while riding. June recalled one particularly muddy ride where everyone was laughing and having fun. Another time, they stretched a 45-minute ride into a 90-minute adventure, singing and enjoying the woods. Elvis's time at Gulf Hills was a peaceful escape, and he would often be heard singing to himself as he rode. In 1956, Elvis's fame was growing, and he was spending more time on the road. Despite this, he always found time to ride. One of his friends, Cecil Spearman, remembered Elvis's kindness and how he would spend hours signing autographs and posing with fans, even when he was on vacation. Elvis's love for horses also extended to his acting career. His first movie, Love Me Tender, released in November 1956, gave him the chance to ride horses on screen. The film, originally called The Reno Brothers, was initially meant for more established actors, but Elvis's screen test impressed everyone. He spent 3 days at Paramount Studios, performing scenes from The Rainmaker and The Girls of Summer. His potential as an actor was evident, and he was offered a contract with Paramount. During the filming of Love Me Tender, Elvis honed his equestrian skills, riding horses, driving a team, and manning a horse-drawn cart. This experience not only showcased his talent as an actor, but also allowed him to indulge in his passion for horses. Elvis's time at Gulf Hills and his role in Love Me Tender represented a simpler, happier period in his life. Horses provided him with a sense of peace and freedom that he cherished, a solace he would seek out throughout his life. Elvis Presley was about to step into the world of movies with his first film, Love Me Tender. In this Western, he played Clint Reno, the youngest of 3 brothers working on a family farm in Texas. His older brother, Vance, was played by Richard Egan, a well-known actor. Deborah Paget, who starred as Clint's wife, Kathy, brought a lot of emotion to her role. Elvis was initially hesitant to take the part because his character dies at the end, but he decided to give it his all. The filming took place at the 20th Century Fox Ranch in Calabasas, California, and the Bell Moving Picture Ranch in the Santa Susana Mountains. These movie ranches were perfect for Western films because they had natural landscapes and plenty of space for action scenes, like horseback riding and shooting. Frank Klump, a famous horse trainer, was in charge of the horse scenes. He had taught many actors, including James Dean and Gregory Peck, how to ride. Elvis was no exception. Klump helped Elvis get comfortable on horseback, and the two formed a good working relationship. Martha Crawford Cantarini, a stuntwoman who doubled for Deborah Paget, remembered Elvis as a kind and friendly guy who loved horses. She shared stories with him about her own horse, Frosty, who was a mischievous palomino. Frosty had a knack for escaping from the barn and letting the other horses out too. Despite his trail riding experience, Elvis was still a novice when it came to formal riding. However, he quickly picked up the skills needed for the film. One of Elvis's more challenging moments on set involved a scene where he had to ride through a field with trees. During the test run, everything went smoothly. But when it was time for the real take, his horse got spooked by some tree limbs and threw Elvis off. He landed a few feet away, embarrassed and a little shaken. Later, he went to the stables to talk to his horse, not realizing that crew members were watching. They laughed at the sight and spread the story, which made Elvis even more embarrassed. Despite the challenges, filming wrapped on September 21, 1956, and the movie was released just 2 months later. The reviews were mixed, but Elvis's fans loved his performance. He even performed the title song, Love Me Tender, on The Ed Sullivan Show during a break from filming. The song became a hit before the movie even came out, a first in the music industry. After Love Me Tender, Elvis's next film, Loving You, didn't require him to ride horses, but he did have a scene where he leaned against a fence in a paddock with horses grazing nearby. His next Western, Flaming Star, in 1960, would bring him back on horseback. By the time Love Me Tender was released, Elvis was a household name. Fans and the media constantly surrounded his home at 1034 Audubon Drive in Memphis, making it impossible for him and his parents to have any privacy. Neighbors complained about the constant commotion, so Elvis decided to find a new home. In early 1957, while filming Loving You, Elvis asked his parents to look for a house. They found Graceland, a beautiful Georgian-style mansion in Whitehaven, Tennessee. The estate, which had been a farm, was named after Stephen Tooft's daughter, Grace. The Moores, who owned it in the 1930s, built the mansion and used the land for breeding Hereford cattle. The house had a musical connection, as the Moore's daughter was a harpist with the Memphis Symphony Orchestra. When Elvis visited Graceland, he loved the long driveway, trees, and open land. He bought the property for just over $100,000. His parents moved in on May 16, 1957, but Elvis didn't join them until June 26 because he was filming in California. The property had a small stable, and Vernon and Gladys kept chickens, pigs, and donkeys. It's not certain if they had horses at first, but the surrounding land was perfect for them. Sarah Irwin, who grew up next to Graceland, remembered that the area was equestrian. The larger Graceland Farms property had paddocks, pastures, and a big barn. A riding club for children, run by William and Spence, was also located there. Elvis later bought more land, including the big barn, to keep the horses. The teens who boarded their horses at Graceland Farms would often let Elvis borrow a horse to ride with him. He was fascinated by the different breeds and the automatic waterer in the barn. Elvis enjoyed the simple life at Graceland, driving a tractor and taking care of the farm. As his fame grew, he had to build a fence and a stone wall with iron gates to keep the fans at bay. But for a while, Graceland was a peaceful place where Elvis could enjoy horses and the quiet life he loved. Elvis's concern for others was evident in how he handled the situation at the barn. He didn't want the teens to lose their beloved place, so he suggested they could stay as boarders. But this idea didn't work out, because he needed the stalls for his own horses. Elvis felt bad about it, but he did what he could to show he cared. When the barn area was turned into a place for new homes, Irwin and her family built one there and continued to be neighbors with Elvis. But things were about to change for Elvis. In December 1957, he got a draft notice for the Army. He could have chosen a special role to entertain soldiers, but he decided to serve as a regular soldier. Elvis was supposed to join the Army in January 1958, but he asked for more time to finish his movie King Creole. After the movie was done, he joined the Army in March and went to Fort Chaffee, Arkansas, for a few days before heading to Fort Hood, Texas, for basic training. It was a big change for him, but he faced it like any other soldier. During his time in the Army, Elvis faced a great loss. His mother, Gladys, got very sick in August 1958. He was given leave to see her, but she passed away 2 days later. Losing his mother was a huge blow to Elvis, and he was devastated. After this, Elvis was sent to Germany for his Army service. There, he met some people who became lifelong friends, like Joe Esposito and Charlie Hodge. He also met Priscilla Beaulieu, who later became his wife. Even though he was far from home, Elvis still showed his love for horses. In March 1959, Colonel Parker arranged a photo shoot where Elvis, in his Army uniform, was photographed with horses. The pictures showed how much he cared about the animals. When Elvis returned to the U.S. in March 1960, he got right back to making movies. His first film back was G.I. Blues, a military musical. After that, he started work on Flaming Star, a Western. In the opening scenes, Elvis is seen riding a white-faced chestnut horse, looking every bit the confident cowboy. He did a lot of his own riding in the movie, and his co-star Barbara Eden said he was a natural on a horse. However, there was an incident during filming that almost shook Elvis's confidence. He was getting to know the horse he would ride in the movie, when it suddenly decided to run back to the barn. Elvis had to duck to avoid hitting a gate, and nearly got hurt, but he didn't let it bother him. He chose to ride that same horse in the film, showing his bravery and determination. Elvis's role in Flaming Star was different from his usual movies. He played Pacer Burton, a man with a Kiowa mother and a Texan father, caught between two worlds. He rode a chestnut horse for most of the film, and a large Appaloosa near the end. In the final scenes, his character, mortally wounded, rides the Appaloosa back to the family ranch and then into the mountains to die. The film was well made but didn't do as well at the box office as some of his other movies. This might have influenced Colonel Parker to focus more on musical comedies for Elvis in the future. After Flaming Star, Elvis rode a horse in Blue Hawaii, a movie set in Hawaii. There's a scene where he leads a group on horseback through the beaches, singing Island of Love. During filming, there was a scary moment when the horse he was riding got spooked and reared up. Despite the chaos, Elvis kept control of the horse, showing his skill and calm. When the scene was filmed, he looked relaxed and confident, even leaning back in the saddle. Elvis told co-star Darlene Tompkins about his dreams of being a dramatic actor and doing stage work. But the success of Blue Hawaii and other musical comedies meant that Elvis would mostly stick to those types of roles in the coming years. During the 5 years from 1961 to 1966, Elvis made 14 films, but only 2 included scenes with horses. In Tickle Me, he sang Dirty Dirty Feeling in a Stable, feeding hay to horses. In Harum Skarum, he played a movie star in the Middle East. Both movies weren't as well received as his earlier films, but they showed that Elvis was always trying new things, even if they didn't always work out. Elvis had always been a big fan of horses, and by the end of 1966, his love for them had reached new heights. He decided to surprise his fiancée, Priscilla, with a horse for Christmas. Priscilla had always dreamed of having a horse of her own, and Elvis, known for his generosity, thought it would be the perfect gift. He called his friend Jerry, shilling over to Graceland for breakfast, and shared his idea. Elvis also wanted to give a horse to Jerry's fiancée, Sandy, so they could ride together at Graceland. Jerry was thrilled and agreed right away. The next day, Elvis and Jerry set off in an old, black, double-cab pickup truck to find the perfect horses. They visited several farms and stables, with Jerry testing the horses while Elvis watched and laughed. Despite Jerry's lack of experience, he was a good sport, and Elvis found the whole experience hilarious. After several trips, they finally found the perfect horses, a black quarter horse gelding named Domino for Priscilla, and a sorrel mare called Sheba for Sandy. Elvis was thrilled with his purchases and dove head first into horse ownership. He visited local saddlery shops to buy all the necessary equipment and riding gear. The stables at Graceland were in need of repairs, so Elvis decided to fix them himself. He became a carpenter, painter, and even a bulldozer operator, tearing down old buildings to create a riding arena. The barn became his sanctuary, a place where he could relax and escape the pressures of his career. Priscilla and Sandy were overjoyed with their new horses and rode them around Graceland almost every day. Elvis, who had initially been hesitant to ride, finally agreed to join them one day. He climbed onto Priscilla's horse, Domino, and found that he loved it. Soon the entire group was riding together, and Elvis was hooked. Elvis's love for horses grew, and he started buying more horses for his friends and their families. The stables at Graceland soon filled with horses of all colors and sizes. Despite his father's concerns about spending, Elvis didn't mind the cost as long as it made his friends happy. He even bought a few Shetland ponies, which his friends jokingly tried to ride, often without success. Elvis spent countless hours in the barn, keeping it organized and well-maintained. He wrote the names of the horses and their riders on the walls with a red felt-tipped pen. His autograph, simply "Mine," appeared next to his own equipment. The barn became a place where Elvis could be himself, away from the spotlight and the pressures of fame. However, Elvis was still dissatisfied with his career. He felt that his movies were repetitive and unchallenging, and he longed for more meaningful roles. But in the barn, surrounded by the horses, he found a sense of peace and purpose. He decided to find a horse of his own, one that matched his spirit and energy. He set his sights on a Palomino, a golden horse with a white mane and tail, known for its beauty and grace. Elvis's insomnia often kept him up late at night, but it also allowed him to explore without the hassle of fans. He and Jerry would drive through rural areas in the early hours of the morning, knocking on farmers' doors and asking if they had a golden Palomino for sale. Most of the time, they were met with disappointment, but eventually word of their quest spread. A local breeder named Robert Boyd heard about Elvis's search and thought he had just the horse for the king of rock and roll. Elvis's journey to find the perfect Palomino horse was just beginning, and he was determined to succeed. In the barn, surrounded by the horses he loved, Elvis found a new sense of direction and a renewed passion for life. Elvis and his friends were on a morning drive in February 1967, looking for a Tennessee Walker for Elvis's dad, Vernon. They were cruising along a country road in Horn Lake, Mississippi, about 10 miles from Graceland. It was still dark, but the first light of dawn was starting to show. As they drove, Elvis noticed something that caught his eye, a towering white cross that glimmered in the early morning light. The cross was about 55 feet tall and stood in the middle of a vast, beautiful property. Elvis was mesmerized. He asked Alan, who was driving, to stop the truck. They all got out and took in the sight. The cross was surrounded by trees and grassy knolls, and in front of it was a large, sparkling lake. A white bridge spanned the lake, and the rising sun was turning the water into a glittering sea of light. Near the front of the property was a charming little farmhouse with white concrete pillars. A "For Sale" sign stood at the top of the property. Elvis was in awe. "This is the most beautiful sight. It is so peaceful. I think it's a good omen," he said. The property was called Twinkletown Farms and belonged to Jack Adams, a retired airline pilot who had spent years enhancing the land. The lake, which was about 10 to 14 acres, was stocked with trout, and the white bridge was illuminated at night, much like the cross. Elvis felt a deep connection to the place. He decided to make an immediate offer to buy Twinkletown Farms. Alan spoke with Jack Adams about the purchase, without revealing that it was Elvis. The price was $437,000, which included the 150 head of Santa Gertrudis cattle living on the property. Elvis agreed to the price and left a $5,000 down payment. The check, dated February 9, 1967, was later sold at auction for $7,680. Jack Adams was impressed by Elvis's honesty and integrity. He suggested that Elvis and his friends come and stay at the farm for a few days to get a feel for the ranch life. Elvis packed up some belongings, loaded up some horses, and brought his friends to the ranch. They spent a few days enjoying the peace and beauty of the place. Elvis's hairdresser and close friend, Larry Geller, found an antique chess set in the farmhouse, and Elvis gave it to him as a gift, saying, "Take it, I am buying the whole place." Once the deal was finalized, Elvis renamed the farm the Circle G Ranch. Some say the G stood for Graceland, while others believe it was for his mother, Gladys. Elvis's friend George Klein recalled that Alan had suggested the name, and when Elvis thought it was for Graceland, Alan explained it was for Gladys. The name stuck. The Circle G Ranch brought a new sense of contentment to Elvis. His friends noticed a change in him. He seemed happier and more relaxed than ever before. Ray Walker of the Jordanaires, who sang backup for Elvis, remembered, "The happiest we ever saw Elvis was when he first bought that ranch." Elvis had big plans for the Circle G. He wanted to move his horses, including his beloved rising sun, to the new property. The ranch offered Elvis a place of his own, where he could enjoy the simple pleasures of life away from the pressures of fame. The rolling hills, meadows, and the sparkling lake provided a peaceful retreat where Elvis could find the serenity he had been seeking for so long. Elvis found his peace and purpose away from the bright lights of Hollywood at the Circle G Ranch in Horn Lake, Mississippi. This vast, tranquil land was a far cry from the chaos of Graceland. Here Elvis could be just Elvis, a man who loved the outdoors and the simple pleasures of life. He spent hours riding his favorite horse, Rising Sun, and tending to the land. His friends noticed a change in him. He seemed more grounded and content. Wearing a cowboy hat and a sheepskin jacket, Elvis looked more like a rancher than a famous singer. His friend Joe Esposito recalled, "He no longer looked like a famous singer and movie star. Wearing a cowboy hat and sheepskin jacket and sitting tall in the saddle, he was a dead ringer for the Marlboro Man." The ranch provided a sense of normalcy that Elvis craved. He could shed his superstar persona and simply enjoy being a part of something bigger than himself. The ranch's size was crucial. At 14 acres, Graceland's backyard was too small for the growing number of horses and the frequent activities. Safety became a concern as more people, many of whom were novice riders, began to use the space. One day, Elvis's friend Red West accidentally ran him over during a game of mounted cowboys and Indians. This incident highlighted the need for more space. The Circle G Ranch, with its expansive grounds, offered the perfect solution. Elvis's close friend Larry Geller explained, "We were all riding every day and going as fast as we could. Elvis realized we needed more space." Elvis's passion for the ranch extended to every detail. He sketched the logo for the Circle G Ranch, a circle with the letter G enveloped by wings. This logo was soon emblazoned on everything from trucks to horse blankets. Elvis's generosity knew no bounds. He bought pickup trucks for his friends and ranch workers, much to the dismay of his father, Vernon, who was still mindful of the poverty they had once faced. But Elvis was happy, and that was what mattered most to him. "I'm having fun, Daddy, for the first time in ages," he told his father. "I've got a hobby that I look forward to getting up in the morning for." Elvis didn't enjoy being alone, so he created a mini community at the ranch. He purchased 8 house trailers and arranged them in a circle near the lake. Each trailer was equipped with electricity, plumbing, and a septic system. The ranch soon became a bustling hub of activity, with Elvis's inner circle, known as the Memphis Mafia, living and working there. They rode horses, had barbecues, and played games. In the winter, they even rode tractors and sleds, engaging in playful snowball fights. The spring brought the joy of watching new calves and foals being born. Elvis's happiness was evident in his appearance and demeanor. His friends noticed that he even let his hair return to its natural sandy blonde color. Elvis's love for horses was boundless. He continued to buy horses of all colors and breeds, naming them with creativity and humor. He bought a black mare, a buckskin mare, and a palomino named Rising Sun. He also ensured that his friends had their own horses. Larry Geller received a Texas-bred horse named Pokey Dunit, which brought joy to his family. Elvis's enthusiasm was contagious, and even those who were initially uninterested in horses, like George Klein, found themselves getting into the saddle. Regular vet care for the horses was provided by Doc Franklin, a lifelong friend and key member of Elvis's stable team. Doc Franklin, a veterinarian from Memphis, cared for the horses for many years. Elvis also enjoyed spending time with his farrier, Lim Couch, who would shoe the horses and chat with Elvis for hours. Elvis spared no expense on his horses, spending thousands on vet care, farrier services, and equipment. He purchased hay, grain, and salt blocks from Mr. Bill Spence of Graceland Farms, and bought saddles and western wear from Spence's horse service and ranch store. Elvis's generosity extended to his family as well. He found a special horse for his father, Vernon, a black Tennessee walker named Colonel Midnight. Vernon quickly fell in love with the horse and rode him frequently. Another addition to the herd was a bay mare named Ingram, which Elvis jokingly renamed Mare Ingram in honor of the mayor of Memphis, William B. Ingram. Other horses received symbolic names like Big Red, Flaming Star, Beauty, and Buckshot. At the Circle G Ranch, Elvis found a sense of belonging and purpose that he had been seeking. Surrounded by his friends and horses, he was happier than ever. The ranch was more than just a place. It was a haven where Elvis could be himself, away from the pressures of fame and the constant scrutiny of the public. Here, he was simply a man who loved the land and the creatures that called it home. Elvis Presley's life at the Circle G Ranch was a haven from the chaos of Hollywood and the pressures of fame. It was a place where he could be himself, away from the cameras and the fans. The ranch, with its 163 acres of rolling fields and a picturesque footbridge, became a sanctuary for Elvis, where he could ride his beloved horses and enjoy the simple pleasures of life. Elvis's love for horses began when he visited the Lenox farm in Tennessee, where he fell in love with the Tennessee walking horses. He was so captivated by their grace and beauty that he decided to buy his own, a beautiful black-gaited horse named Bear. Bear quickly became one of Elvis's favorite horses, and he often rode him, enjoying the smooth, rhythmic gaits that made the ride feel as smooth as a Cadillac. At the Circle G, Elvis found a new sense of freedom and joy. He would wake up early, something he rarely did, and spend hours riding his horses, exploring the ranch, and enjoying the peaceful surroundings. He even developed a close friendship with Mike McGregor, the stable manager, who not only cared for the horses, but also became a trusted companion. McGregor's kindness and skill in handling the horses made the ranch a true home for Elvis. However, the tranquility of the ranch was often interrupted by the demands of Elvis's career. Hollywood kept calling, and Colonel Parker, Elvis's manager, was always pushing for more films. Despite his love for the ranch, Elvis, being a professional, continued to fulfill his obligations. He would often return to the Circle G whenever he could, even if it was just for a brief moment between film projects. One of the most memorable times at the ranch was when Elvis and Priscilla got married. After their wedding in Las Vegas, they returned to the Circle G to continue their honeymoon. They spent their days riding horses and enjoying the peace of the countryside. This time was so special that the brick farmhouse where they stayed became known as the honeymoon cottage. Life at the Circle G wasn't without its challenges. Elvis faced financial pressures from his father, Vernon, who worried about the expenses of maintaining the ranch. Colonel Parker also disapproved of Elvis spending too much time away from the public eye. These pressures eventually led to the sale of some of the ranch's items, including trucks, mobile homes, and cattle. Despite these challenges, the Circle G remained a place of solace for Elvis. It was a reminder of the simple, happy times and a symbol of the life he longed for, a life away from the spotlight, where he could just be Elvis, the horseman and the cowboy. As the years went by, the ranch continued to hold a special place in Elvis's heart. It was a place where he could find peace, where he could ride his horses, and where he could be truly happy. The memories of the Circle G would stay with him, a comforting thought in the midst of his busy and often stressful life.